My name is Mike Kinman. I'm the rector here at All Saints. It is great to have everybody here for this conversation. Welcome to everyone who is streaming with us online across the country and really around the world. You might not know this, but we get hundreds of people streaming this forum and this service, not just from in the U.S., but all over the world. It's actually everybody, can you stand up for a second? Turn towards that camera there and wave. Woo, hello. Great, okay. Good to have you all here with us. Every week we put our faith into action at All Saints Church, and we focus it. And the action that we have this week is very germane to our life together and very germane to our topic for this morning. This week we're writing to our senators and representatives to express our support for the Bridge Act. Most of you know that in 2012, President Obama did something wonderful, and he created the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, DACA. And we have these wonderful young people that we have come to refer to as dreamers. And I love the way President Obama described these images of God among us. He said, young people who study in our schools, play in our neighborhoods, are friends with our kids, pledge allegiance to our flag. They are Americans in their heart, in their minds, in every single way but one, on paper. And part of this wonderful community here at All Saints. And now the DACA program is under grave threat from the incoming Trump administration. And so what the Bridge Act will do is we're in this window period where we have a new Congress, but we don't yet have the new president. And we are asking the Congress, our senators and representatives, to take the administrative actions of President Obama and make them permanent by barring the removal of individuals who qualified under DACA and give them what's called provisional protected presence, or a temporary status to them. And it would be a measure of protection that would lower fear and anxiety and hopefully keep these wonderful images of God in this country. So the action table right over there is someone signing a letter right now, right over there. Please, before you leave, sign that letter. Here at All Saints, your giving makes everything that we do here possible. Your giving in the grace of God. And so what I really want to do this morning, as for those of us who heard me before in worship or will hear me afterwards, is to say thank you. This is our presentation Sunday. For all of you who gave in 2016, for all of you who have pledged in 2017, if you haven't, there's still a chance. You can still do it at any time. We have pledge cards. Please come and see me, and we'll get you all hooked up. But we want to say thank you. December was a remarkable month for giving here at All Saints. We brought in more than $913,000. Which is phenomenal. It's the second best December that we have had since 2007. We ended this year, and this isn't a transition year, and that really is something. And it's such a huge team effort of this entire community, and I want to especially thank Jim LaDuha and our giving office. But really what it's a testament to, as is the pledges that we've gotten for 2017, is that we're all in this together, and we have skin in the game, and that no one gets left out or left behind. And so I am absolutely thrilled to be moving into this new year together as a community. And we are ready to go, and we are going. But you didn't come here to hear me talk, because I need to say one more thing. If you're streaming online, you can be a part of this too. There's a little donate button, and please click on that donate button and make a gift to All Saints Church, and know that you too are a part of everything that is happening in and around and through this community. It is no secret to any of us that immigration reform is something that has been talked about, but other than, frankly, the DACA program, very little has been done about it. It may be President Obama's, frankly, most significant failure during his tenure, and now we are facing an administration under President Trump where we are hearing of significantly more deportations as well as other strategies that will further separate and divide our nation and local communities, that will separate families from one another. And so in organizing ourselves for justice and peace actions, what we always have to do is put at the center the voices and the stories of those among us who are being most marginalized, targeted, and oppressed. We need to let those stories dictate our agendas. And if that's going to happen, we have to listen to each other. And that really is the phenomenal opportunity that we have this morning. I'm deeply grateful to Carlos Carrillo of the Immigration Task Force and Juliana Serrano, who is our Executive Assistant for Peace and Justice Ministries, Justice and Peace Ministries, for helping us have a conversation this morning. And it really is a listening session where we are going to be able to hear the voices of those who have been most affected by our immigration policy or lack thereof in this country, and who stand to be most deeply affected by the potential threats in the future. I invite you not just to listen with your ears, I invite us to listen with our hearts. I'm going to have to step away for a little bit and go to some other places, but I'm going to be listening to this on the archive later. So I don't want to miss any of this either. But for now, I want to turn this over to Juliana Serrano, who is going to introduce our panel. And so can you please, first of all, before we start, can you just give a hand to Juliana and to Carlos for all the wonderful work they do here in this community? And I'll turn it over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Bienvenidos. It is a pleasure to be with you this morning, and I'm so pleased that we have this opportunity to bring you this forum with a lot of my friends and colleagues that I get to do a lot of work with here in Pasadena, and with Carlos, who was very gracious and accepted my invitation to come and co-facilitate today's forum with you all. As Mike mentioned, I think what is most important in the work that lies ahead us with the new administration is for us to be deeply in touch and in tune with the stories of those impacted. And I often feel that when we talk about immigration and immigration reform, and we talk about it as a peace and justice issue, that we often have the perspective that it's an issue that impacts those people over there. And we don't often have a connection to those people over there. And we often fail to recognize that our neighbors are impacted by immigration. Our family members, our friends, our colleagues, the people that we worship with. And the people that are in Pasadena have had significant experiences that we need to open our hearts and our minds to so that we can be part of the work that builds the solution. So that was the essence of this forum today. And I knew that I could turn to Pablo to say, what would this look like and how could this be a presentation? And he inevitably said, we'll bring in Cristina. Cristina will tell her story. And so here we are with this opportunity. But before we move forward, I would love for all of us just to introduce ourselves by name and state any affiliation that we may have. Before then, I would invite Cristina to then share her story. So maybe we just begin with you too, Carlos, to share a little bit about what brings you here today.
Thank you for being here, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak about this very important issue in our community. And just like Juliana said, you never know who's going to be impacted. It might be someone sitting next to you and you don't even know it. So it's really important for us to create a comfort zone, a place where people feel welcome no matter who they are, where they come from, or what their beliefs are. And this is why I'm here. I've been here at All Saints since 2002. And we started the Immigration Task Force in 2006 after the Great March of that year, where All Saints was a great presence, and hoping that the DREAM Act would be signed by our President Obama and continue, and it didn't happen. So we're here again to continue that fight. And as a member of the Immigration Task Force and your vestry, I feel that this is our call for the following session of our presidency. Thank you for being here.
Muy buenos días, mi nombre es Cristina Felipe Ramírez, vengo de Guatemala, tengo 30 años viviendo en este país, gracias pues, al esfuerzo pues, ustedes saben cómo viene uno a la frontera para acá, ¿verdad? Y aquí estoy, bendito sea Dios. Y he traído a mis hijos uno por uno. Ustedes saben cómo los pude traer, ¿verdad? Ganando dinero.
Okay. Her name is Cristina, and she comes from Guatemala, and she immigrated to this country with her kids for a better life. And as most of you know, that takes money to bring people over.
La más importante para mí ha sido mis hijos y por eso vine a este país. Pero le doy gracias a Dios a este gran país y a personas como la Red Nacional de Trabajadores, que he tenido mucho apoyo de ellos, porque con ellos empecé a saber cómo es vivir la vida, se puede decir, porque yo vine a este país sin saber leer ni escribir.
For her, her children are the most important thing in her life, and that's why she immigrated to this country. And she's thankful for this country for all the opportunity that she's received, but especially from the Day Labor Center that has been there for her.
No es muy fácil cuando viene a este país una persona como yo sin saber leer y escribir, porque cuando yo vine por primera vez no sabía cómo escribirle a mis hijos. Yo quería saber de mis hijos. En aquel tiempo no había teléfonos en mi país, donde sea. Entonces yo tenía que escribir y no podía escribir porque yo tenía que molestar a otras personas para que me hicieran las cartas. Cuando me mandaban mis cartas para allá, yo la agarraba, le decía a una persona, ayúdeme, léeme mi carta. Ay, más tarde.
So for her, immigrating to this country was very difficult, especially because she's not able to read or write. So for her, it was extremely difficult to communicate with her children in Guatemala, especially because back then there was no phone where she's from. So every time she would try to write or ask someone to help her write or read a letter, they would ignore her and really did not support her. So that was very difficult for her.
Lo que a mí me satisfacía era que yo recibía una carta de mis hijos y me la metía aquí en mi pecho y haciéndole así, porque no sabía lo que decía la carta, pero yo sabía que decía algo bueno.
So what kept her going is that every time she received a letter from her kids, she would get that letter and put it in her blouse next to her heart, because even though she didn't know how to read it or she couldn't read it, she understood the love that card meant to her.
Y después de eso, pues, bendito sea Dios, pues me hice residente. Primero tuve el permiso de trabajo, después agarré mi residencia y a los 5 años yo me tenía que ser ciudadana. Yo trabajé duro porque para aprender el inglés y escribirlo, porque yo quería pasar la ciudadanía. Eran mis sueños pasar la ciudadanía.
So after many years of struggle and financial hardship, she actually received her permanent residency. After that, her dream and her goal was to become a U.S. citizen. So she went to school, she tried her best to read and write, and because her dream was to become a U.S. citizen.
Después de eso, de mis sueños de hacerme ciudadana, ya después ahorré dinero trabajando como trabajadora doméstica de babysitter, y agarré dinero y agarré mi casita que ahora la estoy pagando, pero algún día va a ser mía.
It was difficult financially for her because she works as a babysitter. So she was able to save every year to pay the application fee to become a U.S. citizen, but she did it. With hard work and dedication, she also was able to put a down payment in a house, and now she has that.
Pero no estoy feliz porque tengo una casa, soy ciudadana, tengo unos hijos que son también ciudadanos y residentes. Pero no estoy enteramente segura de lo que estoy haciendo. Estoy trabajando y estoy mirando qué hago, porque todavía tengo hijos que no son residentes. Todavía son están sin sus papeles.
Despite all of her achievements, she's not happy. She's hurting because even though she has her house, she's a U.S. citizen, and she has children that are citizen and permanent residents, she still has, ¿cuántos tienes?
6.
She still has some kids. She still has children that are not citizens or don't have their permanent residency.
Yo creo que algunos de ustedes, y les doy gracias a ustedes porque también ya es mi segunda o tercera vez, o cuarta vez ahora yo creo, se me olvidó. Ustedes me han apoyado, me han dado mucha fuerza para poder resistir todo lo que yo he pasado con mis hijos que no tienen papeles.
She wants to thank the All Saints community because with our help and support, she has been able to continue her dream, but it's not enough. She still has kids that are suffering who do not have legal status.
Pues como algunos de ustedes saben que yo tengo un hijo con orden de deportación. Y pues primeramente fue porque yo lo pedí, ¿verdad? Pero no sé qué pasó con la de migración. Mi hijo no es un delincuente, es un hombre muy trabajador. Él es jardinero y hace su trabajo con mucha pasión, le gusta. Y como todos mis hijos son, una es asistente médico, la otra es housekeeper, que no los avergonzamos de eso porque es un trabajo bueno y gracias a Dios le dejamos su casa limpia, le dejamos sus niños bien cuidados y mis hijos dejan el jardín bien bonito y lo hacen con mucha pasión.
So she's here to talk about her son who has a deportation order. She put papers for him and something happened during the paperwork. And she's very scared. She has other kids who are, and he's a hardworking, he's not a criminal. He's a hardworking gardener that works every day to make, as she says, some of your homes look good. And her kids are hardworking kids. Some of them are housekeepers, CNAs, and they're not ashamed of that type of work because it impacts our community.
Okay.
Sorry.
Disculpe. Pues como ya les dije, pues mi hijo tiene orden de deportación. Y estoy muy triste porque con esta nueva administración va a haber, yo estoy mirando cuando me subo a los buses mucha discriminación. Y ahora me preocupa más porque por la orden de deportación. Cualquiera va a decir este jardinero lo va a agarrar o lo va, ¿verdad? Y yo quisiera pedirles de favor a ustedes, y yo sé que ustedes tienen un gran corazón, porque yo lo he visto, yo lo he sentido, porque ya he venido aquí, y que presionen a los políticos para que esta ciudad se haga santuario, para que podamos nosotros vivir en paz y no hayan madres como yo que se le rueden las lágrimas pensando que su hijo sale de trabajar y no va a regresar con sus hijos. Mi hijo tiene 2 hijas muy lindas, mis nietas son mis nietas, ¿verdad? Tengo que decir que son lindas, pero son muy estudiosas, dan clases de honores.
Okay. So her son, as a gardener, what she's afraid as a mother about our new administration because she's facing a lot more discrimination. Every time she gets on a bus, she's feeling it, and she's being a victim of that. And she's afraid that her son, when he goes and mows lawns, is going to be abused by someone. And he's a father of 2 lovely children who are great students taking honor classes, And she is asking us as a community to support her goal of making Pasadena a sanctuary city so she can feel safe and that she feels great when her son goes out to work every day and not wait to see what happened to him.
Uno de los de lo más triste para mí es que la niña más pequeña de mi hijo, cuando hubieron las elecciones, mi niña no durmió pensando que quién iba a ganar. Ella decía, ojalá quede la Clinton, no es mucho, pero algo aunque sea. Pero cuando miraban que el señor iba ganando, mi niña se le fue el sueño, no pudo dormir toda la noche. Pensando en su papá y su mamá, que un día van a ser deportados.
Her youngest granddaughter during election night was so nervous. Every time the elections results kept coming in, she wanted Clinton to win. But as the night continued and she saw the results, she was traumatized because she was afraid her parents were going to be taken away from her. And she continues to do that since then.
La niña dice, mami, ¿con quién me voy a quedar? Si tú te vas, ¿con quién nos quedamos? La madre le dice, no te preocupes, duérmete, no va a pasar nada. Si yo me voy, te puedes quedar con tu abuelita, que soy yo. Pero él dice, mam, no es igual con mi mami, con mi papi, me vas a hacer falta. Yo quiero mucho a mi abuelita, pero no es igual como estar con mi papá y mi mamá.
So her granddaughter was asking her mom, who am I going to stay with when you guys are deported? And mom said, well, you can stay with your grandma. And she says, it's not the same. I need my mom.
Imagínese, cuando mi nuera a mí me contó esto, a mí se me hizo mi corazón un nudo que hubiera podido, yo quería agarrar, abrazarla, no la tenía frente. Pero me dio tanta tristeza, no por que sus papás se van, sino por las niñas, ¿qué culpa tienen ellas de quedar sin papá? ¿De qué culpa tenemos nosotros de ser pobres y venir aquí a este país para trabajar y ganar nuestro pan de cada día para nuestros hijos?
When her daughter-in-law told her this story, she just wanted to, her heart hurt, and she was in pain, and she wanted to run and hug her granddaughter. She couldn't understand why people like them who come to achieve the American dream, who are living poverty, are suffering so much.
Mi historia es muy larga, pero yo creo que van a participar los demás. Y les doy gracias a ustedes por escuchar mi historia y me desahogo un poco porque yo contándoles a ustedes, pues es nuestra gente, yo siento mi corazón muy, muy feliz porque yo sé que hay gente buena para nosotros.
Well, her story is very long, and she's aware there's other speakers. So she wants to thank you, and she knows that you are a rich community in the way that we search out social justice, and she knows that we are going to be able to help those in need.
Por eso les pido, por favor, ayúdenos a convencer a estas personas que no intercedan la policía con la migración. Por favor, háganlo por mis niños, por muchos niños de esta ciudad, porque somos muchos en esta ciudad. Buena gente trabajadora, no somos delincuentes.
So please help not allow the police department to work directly with ICE, because we are working people. We are poor people, but we work and we make this city better.
Muchísimas gracias.
Gracias, señora Cristina, por compartir su historia con nosotros y para estar presente en este movimiento que queremos hacer aquí en Pasadena. Y te agradezco mucho la oportunidad de trabajar con usted en esto. I was just expressing my thanks to Cristina for coming here today and sharing her story with us, and how honored I am to be part of doing the work here in this community, and I look forward to doing more of that with her. And Pablo, so if you don't mind, I want to have Pablo speak for a little bit before we get to Flo and Julieta. Pablo, if you could share a little bit about your story too, and how that connects with the National Day Labor Organizing Network and the work that's happening at the Pasadena Job Center.
Sure. Buenos días.
Buenos días.
Well, my name is Pablo Alvarado, and I'm a migrant from El Salvador. I came to the States at the end of the 1990, almost at the end of the 12-year civil war that El Salvador went through. And I worked as a day laborer for 6 years. Then I moved to as an organizer. To work, I worked for the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights of Los Angeles for I think 7 years, and then in 2002 I began a new organization, working for a new organization, the National Day Labor Organizing Network, and we run the Pasadena Community Job Center that is located on Villa and Lake Avenue. I began my organizing work with day laborers here in Pasadena back in 1992. It's been a while. And it took us from 1992 to the year 2000 to convince people that we needed a worker center for day laborers and domestic workers here in Pasadena, to make sure that they get paid for the work that they do, and that they get the training that they need to protect their health and safety when they go to work, et cetera, et cetera. So we have been able to build 70 day labor centers like the one in Villa and in Lake Avenue in 21 states across the country. So we send to work about 1,000 workers on a daily basis nationwide. So to actual job assignments. This, for us, these type of centers, because people believe that immigration reform can only happen in the halls of Congress. I think that that's partially true, but immigrants are not living in the halls of Congress. They live in our neighborhoods. We live in these neighborhoods, and immigration reform can actually happen at the local level. As a matter of fact, the best public policy is that is built from the bottom up, and I think having places like the Job Center here in Pasadena, these, in my view, it's immigration reform at the local level. It's the policies of inclusion rather than politics of exclusion. So these 70 day labor centers now are at risk. As a matter of fact, the adversaries of immigrants have presented the new president-elect with a list of actions that he can take, around immigration, and one of those actions is the closure of day labor worker centers. But the importance of these centers, I don't know how to describe it, but the fight for minimum wage, we wouldn't have won the minimum wage ordinance without that worker center, and also All Saints. Because of that collaboration, we were able to get the ordinance passed. But the importance of these places is so essential in the fight for immigration reform. So I have been very lucky to work with this particular community for many years, and to have been one of them as well. because I think that we have to make sure that that courage kicks in, instead of fear. And if there is an example of courage, to me, is the day laborer. Because just think about what it takes to get up in the morning, stand on a sidewalk, and offer the only thing that you possess, your labor. And you do it with pride, with honor, with dignity. And the uncertainties that you face as a worker, as a day worker, are so many. First of all, you don't know if you're going to get a day of work. You don't know if you're going to get paid for the work that you will do. You don't know if you're going to have an injury at the workplace and if you're going to receive the proper medical care. You don't know if white supremacist individuals and organizations are going to come to harass you at the day labor corner. There have been killings of day laborers, kidnappings of day laborers by some of these groups across the country. So these are some of the uncertainties that people face. And not only that, they also defy the weather conditions, whether it's raining, whether it's sunny, whether it's hot or cold. People are there offering their labor. And I think we as a country must match that courage. And we got to make sure that the politicians here in Pasadena match that courage. Because yes, President-elect Trump has said that he is going to punish what he calls sanctuary cities, or those sanctuaries that have some kind of welcoming policies toward immigrants. So we got to make sure that the political class here in Pasadena remains strong. And so far, they don't have a policy that limits the collaboration between immigration and local police. They have general statements, but at this point, and in the face of the challenges that we're going to face, we need more than goodwill. We need an actual policy that sends a clear message to the undocumented community in this city. We are with you, and we're going to protect you. That's the kind of city that we need. So in the following months, we're going to be working on a policy here in our city.
So with the few minutes we have left, I would love for Julieta and Flo to talk about the work that you're doing with the undocumented community before we then wrap up and then talk about how we might engage and mobilize everyone here in the room. I know, Pablo, you just mentioned the movement to create better policies here in Pasadena between our police and ICE officials, and there are, I think, other ways in which we can become a true sanctuary to the undocumented. So I want to be able to end on that note, but not without first getting to what Julieta and Flo do in the community, and I'm so excited to have you with us.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good morning. My name is Julieta Aragon. I don't have a heartbreaking story. I actually have a positive story. I was born in Mexico. I was brought with my parents when I was 9 years old. And I was privileged enough to become resident through the amnesty of '86. And so from there, when we came to this country, remember, my mother became very, she fell into depression because she was away from her family. And back then we did not have the facility of having phone in her town, so the same story as Cristina, she had to write letters and stuff. But I only went through that very little, because with the amnesty I was able to become a resident, and we were able to travel back and forth. I went through the PUSD system, I went through the education, and I graduated from high school. I didn't have people around me to guide me, so I just went and did what I could myself with a technical career. And that career took me to long hours of work, and I was able to do I've been able to do a very decent life. And I had my child, whom is Diego. He's 8 years old. He's also part of the Pasadena's Unified School District. And he is in the 3rd grade now. But when he was in the 1st grade and he was about to go in the 2nd grade, which is 1.5 years ago, my perspective about life has changed completely. I was so wrapped in my own lifestyle of working, and making a good life and decent life. But it has changed in the 1.5 years ago because the school that my son was attending, which was Madison, we received the news that we were going to have a new principal. But it was interesting because that year, 5 schools were changing principals, and 4 of the schools were getting the chance to elect their principal. And we were not getting the chance of electing our principal. They just told us who our principal was going to be. And for this, it was a principal that had a lot of rumors about the previous school that he was not a very decent principal. So that's when everything, my life started changing. This principal came in acting more as a dictator, more than anything. And he even went as far as threatening more than about 6 mothers, threatened them with immigration because they went and asked questions about him, about what he was doing. So he would tell them, you know, if you continue this, you don't like, I could call immigration to the school, or I could call immigration to your home. He has gone and called social services to children's services to their homes when they question him. And we started fighting. We started fighting for that principle. And that's when I found out that there is, I will say it, there is discrimination because we haven't been heard. They are choosing to believe the principle instead of believing our community. And that's when I said, if I'm not part of the solution, I am part of the problem. And that's when I started getting involved. And I've been involved with the Madison issue. And I can say that, yes, we could pass a reform, an immigration reform, it will be great, but there are also little steps that we can take. There are also little things that we can do. We can, for instance, right now we are doing an organization that is called PEPEC. And this is what we're trying to do is, we're trying to put on the ballot in 4 years. We're trying to put something that the people that cannot vote, at least if you have a kid in the PUSD, at least you can vote for the board member. Because that way, at least you have a voice in who's representing you. That way, we can have a little bit of identification with the school board. So that's a little step that I will ask you to consider, that this immigration is a very long, it's a long run, but for Pasadena, please, we can start with the education. We can start giving the chances to parents that do care about their kids, to at least give them the chance to elect their board members. That way they have a voice in the board, in the PUSD. And of course, you know, I see this city, I've been living in this city for 38 years. And this is my city. I see myself as being in my city. And I see Pasadena as divided, the east side, the northwest side, but you know, we are all the same. We, like Cristina, like some of my family members, we're here to keep the lawns clean, to keep the houses clean, to keep the babies well cared of, to keep the car shining. We are here to make a good life. We are here to earn a decent life. We are not what the Republicans or some other people are saying, or what even this principal is thinking of us, that he can come and threaten us with immigration, and we have to stay quiet because we have no other choice. So I am asking you to please help us with this. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. My name is Florence Sanang, and I enter into this saying that I was born in Ghana, West Africa, in a village, Takoradi, born on my mother's bed, and no lights, no running water. And from that village, my parents, I would call myself a reverse missionary because Ghana was colonized by England. And they gave us the Bible. And so my parents went to England when England opened the doors to the West Indies and their African nations. And I can totally understand what it is in being the immigrant, because being raised in England and being 10 years old and a knock on the door because my dad had gone home to Ghana, and some people in our council home had called immigration, and 5 immigration men walked into our house and asked my mother for papers and said if we didn't have the papers, we would be going in some van downstairs. And my mom did have the papers, and she did have the beginning entry to being a British citizenship. But the idea of people entering into your home and being intimidating and being threatening kind of has lived for a long time in that one incident. And to be in America as a reverse missionary, to be on the corner of Orange Grove and Madison, to be with my families and my children, that in the after school, to give confidence to their education, for them to come in and do their homework, for them to enjoy being in community with one another, and parents to enjoy to be together, but also knowing that there's a cloud of fear, also knowing that they would have what I experienced, and may not have the papers that push those people back and say, okay, we'll leave you alone. And so what's important to me in this community is not just the empathy, is not just the compassion, but I serve the God who sees us. And he sees us in the darkness, and he sees us in the light. And he sees what we do to how do you care for your neighbor. And the way that I choose to care for my neighbor through my own experiences is to engage them in our after school, engage them in our parent empowerment, like allow them to understand through me and Julieta to know what does it mean to be in the school site council? What does it mean to be part of PTA? What does it mean when you have a problem with PUSD? Where should you turn? What should you go? Walk them through the journey of that pipeline of education that the system kind of puts a darkness over them and dumbs them down. And they dumb them down to say that they don't have a voice. And that's also a part of the immigration tree, that they cannot bear that fruit of knowledge of the pipeline of where their children are. And so I think for Thrive Learning Lab, for me and for Julieta, for Pablo, for all of us, is that the immigration is a big tree with many branches, but we have to choose to be the fruit that the Lord can say, taste and see that this is good. That as you pass your fruit to one another, are you caring for your neighbor? Are you willing to protect your neighbor? And do you know your neighbor? Do you know their kids? Do you know what school they go to? Is there any form of communication that they could call you or text you and say, I have a problem? And are the employees, like your gardeners, like your cleaners, like your whoever who you know, do they have that possibility and communication connection that you would support and be there for them? So for me, the immigration thing comes from a different branch, but it all ends at the same root. And the seed of God to me is that it goes down in the ground, it goes dark, you do not know where it's going before it goes up. But when it breaks through, it is about breaking through to engage a community in loving one another. You don't defeat evil with evil, but you defeat it with good. And that good is what I see on the outside All Saints is from so many different levels and so many different issues. But this elephant in the room that we're about to face after the 20th will only be defeated in love and strategic planning and knowing that we're willing to communicate and care for one another. Thank
you. Amen. I didn't know you preached. We might have you back. So we've run out of time, but Pablo, if you could take maybe 1 minute to tell us what's next, what's ahead of us.
Okie dokie. Well, so the right wing is defining what sanctuary is. And they are saying that sanctuary is a bad word. But is it? No. It's a beautiful word, right? So we have to take ownership over that term and define it ourselves. So as all of us have shared, we want to make sure that Pasadena protects not just the undocumented people, but all of those segments of our community that have been threatened by the coming president-elect. It's undocumented people, members of the LGBTQ community. We're talking about African Americans, like women that disabled, people that he has insulted along the way to the presidency. Are going to become target of his policies, I believe. So we've got to make sure that we have a city that protects everyone. There might be, there's so many scenarios, potential scenarios with a Trump administration. Massive, possibly massive deportations, the National Registry for Muslims, et cetera, et cetera. So we got to make sure that our city stands up with our community. So there are different initiatives that we're pushing. So Julieta spoke about putting in the ballot in 4 years the possibility for undocumented parents who have kids in the school district to decide who represents them in the school board. So basic for democracy. So that's one of the things that we're going to be working on. 2 weeks ago, the school board passed a resolution saying that the school campuses from K to 12 are out of the reach of ICE agents. But it's only a resolution. It's not necessarily a binding decision that they made. We are going to be presenting to the school board a plan on how to implement that resolution so that it's not just a symbolic gesture. Got to make sure that parents know that there is a resolution, that the school board, that the school district stands with them. They need to know what's in that resolution. The district needs to invest resources to make sure that every undocumented parent knows about his or her rights. And most importantly, the state passed a new ethnic studies law that will go into effect, I believe, in 2020. We don't have to wait for people to learn about the history of, Latinos. We don't have to wait until 2020 to start learning about the history of African Americans. So we need to make sure that that's part of the implementation. So we're going to be presenting a document to the school board so that they implement this resolution the right way, and we're going to be working with them. So we're going to need a lot of support to come and tell the school board that this is the right thing to do. We're working on the implementation of the minimum wage ordinance, which will help undocumented people and low-wage workers, everybody in this city. And we got to make sure that we lift up employers, high-road employers, places, businesses that are already respecting the ordinance. And imagine if we get all of the businesses here in Pasadena to pay 15. The idea is that prosperity is shared, so we got to make sure that we enforce it the right way. And we'll be talking to you how to engage in that process, because I'm sure you go to dine on weekends, and and it's important that when you go to a restaurant, you talk to the workers, you talk to the owners about the minimum wage ordinance. So we're going to be sharing some of that stuff, So. And what's coming is that in May, this is kind of like the timeline, we will be, our legal team is already drafting the policy that we're going to present to the city council to make sure that the Pasadena Police Department does not collaborate, or at least that there is a bright line as to how far the Pasadena Police Department is going to go in terms of the enforcement of immigration law.
So through our relationship with Pablo and Julieta and Flo and Cristina, we're going to keep you informed when we need to mobilize, because there will very likely be times where we need to show up to city council or to school board meetings, or we need to contact our representatives. So we're going to do the best we can to keep you all informed, to keep you engaged on this topic. We have gone way over time, but I want Carlos, just to make a pitch for the Immigration Task Force, and then I need to get you all to church, or
Yes.
else I'm going to get in trouble. But I know we had
Definitely.
church of our own in here, so thank you again to our guests.
I just encourage you to take action. It is time to stand up, make your voices count. We come to this wonderful church based on social justice. So it's time for us to preach out there in the community. And don't be afraid, because only the people can make changes locally, and that's what we want. And the Immigration Task Force will be doing several events coming up. We're in the process of selecting a leadership team that will collaborate with our community and members of this church and other ministries to make our voice count. So thank you so much, and keep the hope alive.